Neil's story involves hunting, fishing, and usually Dale Earnhardt. Here's one Neil tells on himself.
Earnhardt has this little pet deer. I should be telling this because he's taping and filming this thing for the winter show.
We've been trying to get it on tape for a long time. You wanted to say.
And, you know, they built that house, and all they did about the house, just like a pet, come up and push around. That big old set of horns, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
And they come up and push on you all the time, and they couldn't work on the house. They'd beat him with 2x4 and chase him out and throw rocks at him. They'd build a wall. I'm down there fishing at the lake. He looks on the side, looks at me, just jumps in and starts swimming across. And I said, we was up there filming about a week before. He knocked the camera over, knocked the cameraman down there.
Same deal.
Yeah. And I said, oh, and I just got to catching a 5-pound bass. And I said, you're going to come over and mess up my fishing. I wasn't all he had on his mind. Come over there, got out, and I saw him, he got out and shook over behind me and looking around, you know, I said, man. So next cast I made, all of a sudden, wham, that thing hit me wide open. Got me down on the ground. I had that deer's horn, so it's like this, holding, poking holes in my chest, all up on, you know, kept taking the horn trying to pick me up, all up on my arm. And I finally said, I'll just wring his son his neck. I grabbed that thing and twisted him over and grabbed his nose, trying to get him flipped over, and then I really made him mad there. Threw my damn shirt and pants all poked over all on my back. Hey, I'm glad the camera went there. I've never heard it.
I thought it was a joke. And I didn't realize that it had actually happened. And I was just laughing, and I told myself, well, it's about time with all these deer hanging on the wall. They probably told their buddies, and they ganged up on you, you know.
I finally found this big stick and whacked him a couple of good times and got him off of me. And I went up and see Earnhardt. I'll go up and shop. And I mean, I'm telling you, my shirt was ripped off, pants, blood, I had holes punched all in me. Spit up blood for 3 solid days. Are you serious? Oh, yeah, and I went in and Earnhardt said, what the hell happened to you? I said, that sorry son of a pet deer, you're about to kill me. He said, I wasn't going to tell you. He said, he got out yesterday, went across the street and had some guy pinned down on the ground. Took 3 people to get him off of him. And he said, do me a favor. He said, go down there and shoot him. But shoot him in the heart because he's a pet. He said, don't. I went there and I shot him as high as I could in the neck. He hit the ground, spun around. I went I stomped that son, kicked him. That old guy worked for him said, shoot him again. I said, hell, that son.
Then my son got on front. He said, Mother, he's not kidding. He really got hurt. So it was true. But at the time, the way he was telling it, and he was kind of laughing too, I didn't think he was serious.
Boy, you can tell what I did in the off-season.
2 guys who spent as much time with Neil Bonnett as anyone are Bobby Allison and Buddy Baker. And they're here in his den. Take a listen to this.
I think the funniest thing I ever talked to him about was that bullet boat he had with that. He had a massive motor on that thing. It was like a 200 on the back of it. And I said, what's unique about it? And he said, well, you got to crank it before you put it in the water or it'll sink. He said, you got to be moving all the time. And I said, well, how fast does it run? He said, well, I got to tell you, this thing runs so fast that your tears run out of your eyes, and before the tears get to your ears, they're dry again.
You know, he always had to go for the speed and for whatever would be the fastest, the most powerful, whatever. I'm really glad he didn't take up flying. You know, he probably would have spent about 2 weeks getting his pilot license, and then he would have spent the next 2 weeks finding the fastest, trickiest airplane in the world just to go out and go faster than any of the other guys that fly their planes back and forth to the racetrack.
I go hunting with him. I stay with him down in his trailer, and he's hunting down on his hunting land, and he cooked supper for us. And the biscuits were so hard you could wipe somebody out if you hit them with it, you know.
I mentioned 20-minute time limit, you start pumping.
Got to go fishing with him some. You know, I do enjoy the fishing some. But he was the character fishing, too. I mean, he is, you know, almost, you had to look around and see if he had a gun with him. You know, if we saw a fish and it wouldn't bite, he'd shoot it.
That don't sound right. I remember when I came over here, you ain't done nothing over here one time. Early, long. Has it been that long? I got the idea. Best I remember, I'm going to hit you in the head last. I better, you owe me one, don't you?
Watch him. He'll hit you in the head with a lunker lure. We were fishing over on the lake one day, and we was catching bass left and right, and I was up in under a bridge catching bass, tossing under the bridge, and about that time, whap! I said, whoa! He said, use him away. I know he didn't mean to. I know it probably got all over him when he hit me, but then he just come off the cuss and use him away. And went on fishing, never said another word. Boy, it hurt. Put a knot on me.
The first cameraman for Winners was Jeff Manhart, and he's still with us today. Jeff and Neil traveled all over the country together. Jeff,
Neil had fans all over the country. And one time we were in California and we were coming back from a shoot, and it was pretty late. It was about midnight. And we were staying at a high-rise hotel, and we're walking through the courtyard. And all of a sudden we hear a yoo-hoo, and a shoe comes flying down, and we look up, and there's a woman standing on about the 10th floor balcony. And about that time, another shoe comes flying down, and Neil says, well, let's sit here and watch this for a second. I said, okay. So she starts taking off her blouse, so we couldn't believe what was happening. And the blouse comes flying down, and Neil says, hey, she's doing that for you. I said, well, I don't know about that. I don't know who she is. And about that time, the pants come off, and they come down off the balcony, and then finally the bra comes off, and it comes down, and she looks down, and she yells, you, Neil. And he looks at me, and he says, come on, Manhart, you better get me up to my room before I get in big trouble.
Oh, here's what I need. I knew if I kept digging around. Here's the way it works. If you have a candy bar and eat a diet drink, then it neutralizes. No weight gain.
People care these days. They just don't want me to put another toxic antifreeze in their car. I mean, who needs something that toxic? So what if it protects to 70 below? Any antifreeze can do that. Give me something different, something safer, that's essentially non-toxic. I mean, what if their dog gets into it? Or their kids? This is serious.
Sierra, it's not just antifreeze, it's safety freeze.
Is on my side. Yes, it is.
The time is 5:01. The beer is Miller High Life, and the reason is clear. When the time is your own, it must be Miller time. Miller time, Miller beer.
Yes, it is.
How does your Genie screwdrive door opener work?
You got this big screw, see? And it's real long, and the thing just turns like that, so the door slides real quiet.
Any mom with a lot of kids could use a Genie.
Genie screwdrive, built for a lifetime.
The customized 1947 Harley-Davidson, about $15,000. The big twin shaver, about 35 cents. What do they have in common? They're both worth every penny.
Patsy Ann, Earl Jr., we gotta work fast, because I want to watch Music City tonight.
Sure, Pop.
Okay, listen. On 1, I prepared a garment. On 2, Earl Jr. presses it. And on 3, Patsy hangs it up. Got it?
Sure, Pop.
Okay. 1, garment prepared.
Earl, what time will that be ready?
About 2.
Watch Music City tonight, every weeknight on TNN. If you miss it, you'll be pretty steamed.
Very funny.
Racetracks everywhere are cold and quiet. The teams have all gone home to dress turkeys and trim trees, while TNN Motorsports is turning up the heat. With 8 live races from Tucson Raceway Park, featuring the awesome NASCAR Super Truck Series. NASCAR Winter Heat, today live on TNN Motorsports.
First he says, I don't need that stuff, do I? And then, maybe you could just put a little powder on my nose. And now he shows up.
No, I didn't. I said, if you put it on my nose, it'd take a lot of powder. You got to look at the area you're working with. Now, see what they make you do to do TV? When I get lipstick, I'm quitting.
Neil had some of his greatest success in the 21, the Wood Brothers car. 9 Winston Cup wins. Eddie Wood became his crew chief. Eddie's joined here in the den by a couple of cousins, a couple of buddies, Clarence and Larry Northcutt. This ought to be good.
Did you ever have any funny tales when you talked to him on the radio in the race car a lot? Was he ever funny in the...
Oh, yeah. He'd keep you in stitches during the race. I mean, you couldn't really concentrate on what you're doing half the time because he'd be racing with somebody and just up and say something about somebody.
Yeah.
I know one time at Talladega, probably, I guess, 1989, we qualified like 3rd, and he'd come back by. I believe he led the first lap.
Yeah.
He ducked down on the inside, going down the backstretch and led the first lap, and he went on out of sight there, and that pack right behind him, just right on top of him. He's running along there, one under him, one on the outside. He comes up on the radio and he said, "This is a nice day for a Sunday drive."
This is Hueytown, Alabama, and this is Neil Bonnett's home place. And this is First NASCAR Sportsman car and its owner, Butch Nelson.
Ken, let me tell a story about this car, Neil Bonnett, and his old racing buddy, Darrell Walter.
Boy, now I'll tell you what, is this not a cute girl? You can't tell me that don't remind you of Walter.
Darrell comes over and asks Neil, "Neil, what size spring do I need to run in the right rear? I don't seem to be getting in the corner properly." Neil looked puzzled, and those old eyebrows lifted up, and he said, "Butch, come here a moment." He said, "Was I hearing right? Did Darrell Walter just ask me what kind of spring to run in the right rear?" I said, "Neil, that's the way I heard it." Well, at that time, I think it was about a 185-pound spring that was proper to run at that particular racetrack. Neil goes back to Darrell and says, "Darrell, you need a 350 in the right rear. 350-pound spring, way too heavy." Darrell says, "Neil, that seems awful heavy." I said, "We didn't bring anything that heavy." Neil said, "Oh, I have some in the truck you can borrow." Well, to make a long story short, Darrell borrows our spring, puts it in his car. Qualifications are coming up. Neil tells him, "Now all you have to do is drive it real deep in the corner, burp it once, stand on the gas, and you'll be set." Well, Darrell, I hate to tell this on you, old buddy. You did drive it deep in the corner, you did burp it once, and you did knock the wall down. At that particular time, we didn't have to worry about the second quickest driver that night, and as memory serves me correct, Neil had a very easy win that night.
Car number 75, Neil Bonnet. By his fingernails and toenails clutching to the side of this rock. Here they come down the line to finish it this afternoon. The checkers are out. And Alabama's Neil Bonnett, fourth a week ago at Daytona, comes back and wins here today.
Every race tire is equipped with a special number on it. This number indicates the compound, whether it be soft or hard. I walked in the shop one night and caught Neil shaving the numbers off the tires. "Neil, what are we doing?" He said, "Well, it's getting a little hard to win at this particular track we'd won about 12 in a row on." He said, "I'm putting some hard numbers on the soft compound." I said, "What in the world for?" He said, "Well, everyone's going to come over and look at our tires. They're going to find out we've got hard numbers on the tires. They're going to assume they're hard tires. They're going to go out and buy hard tires. We're going to still have soft tires with hard numbers. And you know what's going to happen? It's going to be real easy to win." We went to the racetrack. Sure enough, here comes all these guys over after we hot lapped it and was getting around real fast, checking the tires. The tire business that night at, I believe it was Opp Motor Speedway in Opp, Alabama, was phenomenal. Everyone got off the soft tires, only the hard tires, except us. We had soft tires with hard numbers. You folks know what happened.
Well, I don't care what anybody says. I've heard stories about cheating and stuff. Neil Bonnett would never cheat. He raced for people that would cheat a little bit, though, Bobby.
Well, yeah, but now wait a minute, buddy. Some of the people that he drove for cheated, but some of us didn't cheat.
Folks, what they're talking about is competitive edge. It wasn't cheating, and when they done it in Hueytown, it was competitive edge. Anybody else that was cheating.
Yeah. All them other guys that definitely was cheating.
He can come up with some of the darndest stories. One time he ran his Ford, he says, "Well, I'm going to just drive across this little creek, He drove off in it, and it floated off down the creek. Ford, he went underwater. So he had to sort of swim out, and then he had to go back in there and hook a chain to it and get it out underwater."
And now it's time to visit Neil Bonnett's Winners Gallery and this week's brand future winner, Jeff Purvis. Jeff took over Neil's ride in the Phoenix Racing Country Time Chevrolet following the tragedy at Daytona. Jeff worked his way up to a Winston Cup schedule after mastering the basics in ARCA.
I started out in ARCA running a lot of the super speedways and learned a lot about drafting and a lot about running these big heavy cars on those tracks.
Jeff first came to the attention of car owner James Finch on the dirt track circuits back in 1985. Then 5 years later, Neil and Finch combined to launch Purvis into Winston Cup competition. Among Jeff's role models are two of the best.
My style, if I had to compare it, it'd be between the Rusty and the Dale style.
Those picks would make Neil smile, and that's why Jeff Purvis is this week's Fram Future Winner.
If you don't replace your air and oil filters regularly, you might as well drive your car off a cliff, because dirt can really mess up an engine. Fram Extra Life air filters and Fram Extra Guard oil filters keep out dirt best to protect your engine. Fram, America's #1 premium brand. Pay a little now, or a lot later.
The temperature never drops below Xerex. That's very important to remember, especially at a time like this, when it's very deserted and very cold. Ah, you did remember Xerex antifreeze. The temperature never drops below Xerex.
I don't need some fancy cologne to tell me I'm a man. I use Skin Bracer. It smells great, but it also cools and tones my skin. Confidence is very sexy, don't you think?
Original and cooling blue.
By Menon.
Out of the pages of the book of Revelation, they will ride onto the world scene. Who are these symbolic 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Why do they ride? This free booklet inside the book of Revelation will help you understand the Bible's most mysterious book. It will explain the symbols of Revelation, like these foreboding horsemen, and what they mean for us. Request your copy today, and you'll also receive the Plain Truth magazine. The Plain Truth will give you a better understanding of the Bible and help you face the future with greater confidence. For the free literature, call toll-free 1-800-248-5588 today. There's no cost or obligation. That's 1-800-248-5588.
Music City Tonight's got your favorite stars. Monday, Patty Loveless heats up the stage. Wednesday, the Oak Ridge Boys shake the rafters. Catch your favorite stars on Music City Tonight, beginning Monday.
Tigger. Hey, Tigger. Tigger, come on. Tigger. You think Tigger go with us? Look here. Tigger gonna rise? Got the whole plan going.
It was Gene Shepard who said that if horse racing was the sport of kings, then auto racing was the sport of friends. The Bonnett family are all friends, 4 generations of them, and we thought we'd get them together for a family portrait.
We were playing one time. Our team had made it to the World Series 2 years, and we won the first year. And the second year, we was in the last tournament. And he would always park at left field fence, and I would say he would never come in the stands because he was too lazy to come up there and sit down. He wanted to kick back in the truck, and when I came up to bat, I would step in the batter's box and grab my bat and put it up over my shoulder, and he would blow the horn, and then he'd wave for me to hit it out over left field fence. But every time I went up to bat, it finally got to where it was embarrassing because everybody knew who it was. And then I would stand in the batter's box, and then he would blow the horn. And then if I got a single, he would blow the horn once I got on the base. If I got a double, he'd blow it twice, and so on. But he was a mess.
Back a long time ago, I used to sew all of his patches on his uniform. Well, my machine quit working. I couldn't get the machine to work, and so I had to sew them on by hand. And naturally, when you sewed them on by hand and then you took them to the cleaners, the next time he got ready to wear them, they were half off, you know. So he got ready to go to a race somewhere, and he said these patches were just hanging down everywhere. So he got somebody to kind of tack them up. So when he got home, he said, "Susan, you have got to sew these patches on this uniform." He said, "They're flapping. They're knocking me out in the race car. They're flapping. They're so loose when I'm running around the racetrack." So I said, "Well, I can't. I can't get the sewing machine to work, you know." So anyhow, he's mad because he's wanting his patches on. He's tired of everybody cracking on the fact that all of his patches are kind of hanging down, kind of loose, hand sewed. So he proceeds to get the sewing machine out of the closet. He puts it up. He squirts oil all over the thing. He puts and his cousins are here, and they're dying laughing because if you'd seen this man trying to sew with his sewing machine. Anyhow, he threads the machine, puts the fire suit up there, and he stomps it, and the machine The machine is smoking and smoking, but he is sewing patches on his uniform. I don't know what he did to get it to work. The thing had been locked up for months, but he had it going. But it was the funniest thing to watch him sewing his patches on his uniform.
They fished a lot of the overflow ponds on the Warrior River, and it was real snaky, bad snaky. And I always was scared to death to walk through the woods. Well, he'd go through the woods wide open, and every step I'd make, I'd have to look to make sure I wasn't stepping on a snake. And a lot of water moccasins stayed in these ponds. And when I finally would get to the lake, he'd be about chest deep fishing in them. And I came up on him finally there, and he was fishing around some trees, and there were about 2 water moccasins hanging in these trees. And I said, Daddy, don't you see them water moccasins there? He said, them things ain't gonna bother you. He reached up there and flicked them off with his lure, with his fishing rod, and I started running the other way. Well, he kept on fishing. I mean, he kept right on going. That didn't bother him a bit.
The field producer for these episodes of The Winners was Stephanie Smith Wright. Now, oftentimes, she was the referee.
Well, Ken, some of the best times we had with Neil happened right here in this basement. Neil and the director usually wanted to get to the same place. However, they often took different roads to get there. Behind the scenes, it was hilarious. For example, the time he tried out his Australian accent.
We think very much the same. We even talk alike. Jeff's biggest fan is his wife and fellow Aussie, Rosanna. You know, we think very much the same. We even talk alike. What a deal. I got lost in the middle of it.
And then there was the time he went to Planet Hollywood.
Folks are winners, we travel. Folks are winners, we travel all over the country. To do any, I'll say it in a minute.
And then, of course, there's Hueytown.
Hey, we do a lot of this jet skiing in Hueytown, too. As a matter of fact, I'm negotiating a deal for the World Championships here in about 2 years. I'm going to flood the Gopher Dome. You ain't going to believe the way it's going to be. Later on that, got stumbling around there. Hey, I got a lot to do. Do you realize that I'm responsible for the progress of the Gopher Dome, the Hueytown International Airport, the Huey Municipal Opera House, and the Jefferson County Not-So-Modern Museum of Art? I mean, would you believe this guy once shot and killed his lawnmower when it wouldn't start? Now, you think that's uncool? You do that in Hueytown, and you get a statue in a town square and a free lawnmower.
One of the funniest times we had down here in this den was the time that we decided to change Neil Bonnett into Cecil B. DeBonnet.
Cecil B. DeBonnet here, with my report gathered at great risk to life and limb. Did I do it wrong? No, good, because I don't want to do this many times.
Oh, sure you do. It's fun.
The things I'll do to buy you some dog food.
So, all good things come to an end. For all who made this a wonderful venture, the sponsors, Allied Signal, the network, TNN, the World Sports Gang, and especially the winners who stepped in for Neil as guest host this season, and of course, the Bonnets. I'm Ken Squier. Thank you, and so long.
Neil Bonnett's Winners is brought to you by Allied Signal's Fram filter products. Fram, you can pay a little now or a lot later. And by Autolite spark plugs and wire and cable products. Autolite spark plugs, guaranteed for 2 years no matter how far you go.
Next time on Winners, former Grand National sensation Steve Grissom will look at his transitions as a rookie to Winston Cup competition.
Promotional consideration provided by Allied Signal's Bendix Brakes, the best-known name in brakes.
Fred, I'm going to do one right here. You're not going to be ready for this. Here it comes. Here it comes. Let me get my breath. Tell me when we're ready. I'll try another one.
Ready. Dog.
Mini.
9.
By 1989, Mark Martin was a fun. God, Fred, are you marking down how many of those you're getting down here? Have I ever done it this many times, Fred? Hello. Fred, quit flashing when I'm helloing.